June 2025. Israeli fighter jets disappeared from radar screens over Tehran. Iranian air defense operators watched in confusion as their most sophisticated Russian-made systems went blind. Within hours, their entire network collapsed. The weapon? America's F-35 stealth fighter, modified by Israel in ways that shocked even Pentagon officials. What happened in those skies wasn't luck. It was the result of years of secret training that nobody talked about. And what Israel discovered during those classified drills changed modern warfare forever. If you think modern air defense systems can stop determined pilots with the right training, type yes in the comments below. But this success didn't start on that October night. It started years earlier in training exercises most people never heard about. And the story of how Israel cracked Iran's radar network is far more fascinating than anyone realized. See, there's a massive difference between owning advanced technology and knowing how to use it against a specific enemy. Israel didn't just practice generic flight patterns. They studied Iran's exact radar systems. They simulated Iranian defense networks. They figured out the precise weaknesses in equipment that Moscow claimed was unbeatable. And they did all of this through secret drills that pushed their pilots to the absolute limit. Let me walk you through exactly how they did it. March 2023. 7 Israeli F-35s landed at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. This marked the first time Israel sent their stealth fighters to participate in Red Flag, America's most realistic combat exercise. Now, Red Flag isn't some casual training event. It simulates actual war conditions, with aircraft playing enemy forces using real-world tactics. The Israeli pilots spent 2 weeks there. They flew in environments packed with simulated air defenses. They practiced suppressing enemy radar systems. They trained for low-altitude flights through areas filled with anti-aircraft equipment. But here's what most reports missed. They weren't just training against generic threats. They were preparing for Iran's specific defensive setup. The Israelis brought their own Boeing 707 tanker aircraft to these exercises. Why does that matter? Because they were practicing the exact flight profiles they'd need for strikes deep into Iranian territory. The distance from Israel to Tehran is roughly 1,500 kilometers. Every drill focused on extending their operational range while maintaining stealth. And this was just the beginning. In June 2021, Israel sent 6 F-35s to Italy for what they called Falcon Strike. British, American, and Italian forces joined them. When reporters asked Israeli Air Force officers about the exercise, one senior officer didn't hide the truth. He said 3 simple words: Iran is in our focus. Think about that level of transparency. They openly admitted they were training to penetrate Iranian airspace. But what they didn't reveal was how they planned to do it. These international exercises gave Israeli pilots something invaluable. They got to fly alongside NATO aircraft that use Link 16 communication systems. They learned how to coordinate attacks with multiple nations. More importantly, they discovered how to integrate their modified F-35s with 4th-generation fighters like F-15s and F-16s. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Israel didn't just accept the standard F-35 that America sells to other countries. They demanded something different. And the Pentagon, surprisingly, agreed to let them customize it in ways no other nation could. The Israelis call their version the F-35I Adir. Adir means mighty in Hebrew, and mighty is the right word for what they built. First modification: electronic warfare systems. Israel integrated technology from Elbit Systems that specifically counters Middle Eastern threats. These systems can jam radar frequencies that Iranian and Syrian air defenses use. They can detect when an enemy radar locks onto the aircraft, and they can respond with countermeasures in split seconds. American F-35s have excellent electronic warfare capabilities, but Iranian systems are tailored for the exact equipment their enemies operate. It's like having a lockpick designed for one specific lock instead of a universal key. Second major change: extended range fuel tanks. The standard F-35 has impressive range, but Israel needed more. They developed conformal fuel tanks that hug the aircraft's body. These tanks are covered with radar-absorbing materials so they don't compromise stealth. With these modifications, Israeli F-35s can fly over 2,200 kilometers without refueling. That's enough to reach any target in Iran and return home.
Third, critical modification: command and control systems built by Israeli defense firms. These allow seamless communication with other Israeli military platforms. When an F-35I detects a threat, it can instantly share that data with ground forces, naval vessels, and other aircraft. It creates a networked battlefield where everyone sees the same picture in real time. And here's something most people don't know. Israel performs all maintenance on their F-35s domestically. Unlike other nations that depend on Lockheed Martin for heavy repairs, Israel built the infrastructure to do everything themselves. This gives them two advantages. First, faster turnaround times. Second, complete control over their aircraft without foreign oversight. American military planners watched these modifications carefully. Some were impressed. Others were concerned Israel was getting too independent. But the results would prove the Israelis knew exactly what they were doing. August 2024. Israeli media released photographs that made defense analysts around the world pause. The images showed Israeli F-35s and F-15s in a massive formation, all carrying live weapons, all connected to aerial refueling tankers. The Israeli Air Force described it as an exercise simulating long-range flights deep behind enemy lines. They practiced aerial refueling in short time periods. They rehearsed maintaining aircraft in the air for extended durations, and they did all of this while armed with actual munitions. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was a final dress rehearsal. Around the same time, Israeli F-35s participated in joint exercises with American forces over Israeli airspace. These were the first times American F-35s trained above Israel. The two air forces practiced coordinated strikes against strategic aerial and ground threats. They tested communication systems. They refined tactics for operating in contested environments. But there was another layer to these exercises that few people understood. Israel was also training over Cyprus in secret drills that involved American support aircraft. These exercises specifically focused on hitting remote targets. Intelligence analysts immediately recognized what that meant. They were practicing strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. The Israelis studied every aspect of Iran's air defense network. They knew Iran had deployed Ghadir radar installations designed to detect stealth aircraft. These weren't ordinary radars. They were Russian-made Rezonans-NE systems that operate on frequencies specifically meant to spot F-35s. So, Israeli pilots trained against simulated versions of these exact systems. They learned the radar's detection ranges. They figured out blind spots. They discovered that stealth aircraft are most invisible from the front, but have larger radar signatures from the sides and rear. This meant they needed to approach targets from specific angles and maintain precise flight paths. They also practiced something called suppression of enemy air defenses. This involves destroying or jamming radar systems so other aircraft can operate safely. The F-35I became the tip of the spear for these missions. It would go in first, locate the radars, and either destroy them or blind them with electronic warfare. And then came the ultimate test, the real operation. October 25, 2024. 3 waves of Israeli aircraft crossed into Iranian airspace. Before they even reached Iran, Israeli forces eliminated Syrian air defenses to create a safe corridor. They systematically removed any threats along their flight path. When they entered Iranian airspace, something remarkable happened. Iran's sophisticated radar network failed to provide adequate warning. The Israeli F-35s had already identified and targeted key radar installations. They hit multiple Ghadir sites housing those Russian stealth detection systems. They destroyed S-300 missile batteries that were supposed to protect Iranian nuclear facilities and infrastructure. British Admiral Tony Radakin later revealed something stunning. He said Israeli aircraft stayed more than 100 miles away from their targets during the initial wave, yet they still managed to take down nearly the entire Iranian air defense system. How? The F-35 sensors allowed them to detect and engage threats from distances Iranian defenders didn't think were possible. The operation hit 20 military sites. They struck missile production facilities at Parchin and Hojir. These locations manufactured the solid fuel missiles Iran had fired at Israel earlier. They targeted the Sharud missile complex, essential for Iran's most advanced ballistic missiles. And they did catastrophic damage to Iran's ability to defend itself against future attacks. Here's what made this operation historically significant. Unlike Russia's struggles to gain air superiority over Ukraine after years of fighting, Israel achieved it over Iran in days. Military analysts credited superior training, type integration between intelligence and operations, and the element of surprise. But June 2025 proved it wasn't a one-time success. Israel launched Operation Rising Lion. Over 100 aircraft flew 2,000 kilometers to strike Iranian military and nuclear facilities again. The F-35s once again led the assault. They neutralized rebuilt air defenses, they struck targets in Tehran during daylight hours. And again, not a single Israeli aircraft was lost. Iranian state media claimed they shot down Israeli F-35s. They released photographs of alleged wreckage. But the images were quickly identified as doctored. No credible evidence ever emerged supporting Iranian claims. Meanwhile, Israeli jets continued flying over Tehran with apparent impunity.
What Israel accomplished wasn't just about destroying radars and missile sites. They proved something that will reshape how nations think about air defense. They showed that even sophisticated Russian-made systems can be defeated by properly trained pilots using advanced tactics and modified aircraft. Iran had spent billions on equipment Moscow claimed could detect and shoot down stealth fighters. All of it failed when confronted with an adversary who had studied every weakness and trained specifically to exploit them. The secret wasn't just the technology. The F-35 is an incredible aircraft, but other nations have it too. The secret was the preparation. Those exercises in Nevada, Italy, and Cyprus weren't just training. They were intelligence-gathering operations disguised as drills. Israeli pilots learned exactly how to defeat the systems they'd eventually face in combat. American military planners took notice. The success of Israel's F-35 operations provided valuable data about how these aircraft perform against sophisticated air defenses in real combat conditions. It validated years of development and billions of dollars in investment. For Iran, the implications are severe. Unless Russia can replace their destroyed systems with new S-400s and advanced radar complexes, Iran lacks meaningful air defense against future Israeli strikes. And given Russia's own needs in Ukraine, those replacements may never come. Israel now operates with near-total air superiority over Iranian airspace. They've demonstrated they can strike any target they choose. The psychological impact is as important as the military advantage. The story of how Israel's F-35s cracked Iran's radar network shows what's possible when you combine cutting-edge technology with relentless training and tactical innovation. Those secret drills across 3 continents weren't just exercises. They were the blueprint for operations that changed the balance of power in the Middle East. The Israeli Air Force proved that success in modern warfare isn't about having the newest equipment. It's about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. It's about training for specific missions rather than generic scenarios. And it's about having the courage to test your capabilities when everything is on the line. The modified F-35I Adir, with its extended range, tailored electronic warfare systems, and highly trained pilots, became the weapon that defeated an air defense network specifically designed to stop it. That's the power of preparation meeting opportunity. If this story showed you something new about modern air combat, hit that like button and subscribe for more in-depth military analysis. Thanks for watching.